That same screw that was bringing in that stuff was dead set giving reach arounds to half of that unit.
All I have in this world is my balls, my word, and I don't break them.
Rightio legends, Chaos Chronicles, and we're back again with another banger. And so today we're going to get straight back into the corruption, and especially the corruption at Port Phillip Prison. And we're going to talk about the corruption between the officers and the crooks that have those officers' suites. So in other words, those officers are doing things for those crooks, and how for those crooks that have those officers' suite, everything's all hunky-dory, but it is very dangerous for the people that don't have those screws suite. And all right, let's get into it. So I guess, we'll start off by saying, I remember a time where, and we'll start off low and then we'll work our way up. Now, I remember this time where a prisoner was taken out by crooks at the direction of the prison guards. Now, what had happened is someone had made a complaint to the ombudsman about a certain supervisor in this certain yard. Now, this was a certain supervisor that was sweet. So the boys had this person bringing stuff in and he was a screw that was of some stature. And so on this particular time, this screw had found out through the grapevines or whatever that this person had been snitching to the authorities about this guy being not only corrupt, but like pretty brutal as a screw as well. And so that guy very quickly was taken off the yard and sent to protection, looking like a sieve, with shanks that were handed to him by officers that had confiscated shanks off of people. Now, keep in mind what I said. This was a supervisor. Now, if that's not corruption, then I don't know what is. Now, this guy on this day legitimately nearly lost his life. Now, he was stabbed by 3 different people. I can't remember the exact number of times he was stabbed, but this was all organised by that screw. And because that screw was sweet and was doing things, people were making sweet money, and in their eyes, the crook, and absolutely, do you know what I mean? Like, it's still snitching. It doesn't matter what way you look at it. This guy going and telling the ombudsman is like as good as telling the cops. If you're telling people that the screws are being corrupt or whatnot, it's as good as telling the cops. So it's a snitch. Now, this guy was going to get taken off the yard anyway for being a snitch. But my whole point is, this guy was taken off the yard as a direct direction from that screw, was given the implements of war by that screw, and then these guys went out in the yard and took that guy out so this guy couldn't see anything and give any more information about things that he had seen. Now, obviously, he would have been able to snitch his ass off when he got into protection, which is probably exactly what happened. But that's my first example of what it's like and what it was like at Port Phillip when I talk about corruption. So there's not many higher than a supervisor. So it goes a 1 pipper, a 2 pipper, which is a supervisor, a 3 pipper, which is a manager, and yeah. So anyway, this is basically what happened, and so that was my first example of what it was like and how dangerous it was when you had to look out for the screws being just as dangerous as the friggin' crooks. Now, my second story, I will talk about one female screw in particular. Now, this one female screw, I will say, I've made mention of this in videos in the past, how the larger screws are the larger female screws are the ones that get preyed on by the males. And, they, as horrible as it sounds, they prey on their size and, tell them how beautiful they are. And, it usually starts off like this. Oh, write me a letter, miss. Write me a letter, miss. And then, oh, no way. And then, they just keep at it. And so next thing you know, that's as simple as it is. Like, if they write you, especially a handwritten letter, and it doesn't even matter, like, really, that letter is enough to make them lose their job instantly. It would be seen as having some kind of intimate relationship. But anyway, moving on. So this one particular screw was writing letters to about 4 or 5 different guys. So in other words, 4 or 5 different guys had this screw writing letters to start with. And then very soon after that, all 5 of these people were having intimate relationships with this screw. And then very soon after that, they asked to bring in things like Vegemite and just small things. Do you know what I mean? Like one glove finger full of tobacco. And then as soon as they do that and bring in contraband, well, then it's hook, line, and sinker. But this screw was an absolute putrid. And so I literally seen this screw make up false accusations and make out like boys were snitches when they weren't, just to get them out of the compound, because the boys that had this screw suite didn't want them people around. And so I don't care what anyone says, right? If you're using screws to get other crooks off the yard, you're a fucking snitch. You're a fucking snitch. You're a no good fucking rat, and you may as well be wearing that blue uniform with the fucking corrective services badge on it. Because in my eyes, if you're using the fucking screws to set up people that you're too fucking weak to do it yourself, well, yeah, you are in the same category as snitches, in the same category as PDF files, in the same category as screws. You are the worst of the worst. And so, like I said at the start, this is exactly why it is dangerous to have screws that are that corrupt. Now, this girl was bringing in that much stuff that it was absolutely crazy. So I'm talking about, so this was at a time when I've spoke about Port Phillip had a fire in the secure mainframe, right? That will be another video of corruption, 100% corruption, why that fire took place, and it was a cover up for something else. That's for another video. But it's just like, anyway, this girl was bringing in that much stuff and things that were just crazy, because after the fire, they didn't have any like electric what's-a-doogies, the metal detectors that they have to walk through. They also have these other scanners which blow air to see if you've got any contraband on you. So the screws have to go, if you're been in to visit anyone in prison, the screws have to go through that exact same procedure. And so she was bringing in phone, watches, so smart watches, loads and loads and loads of SIM cards. And so the main thing that will get taken when you bring in phones and all that stuff is your USB cord and the charger. They are the hardest things to hide. They're not flat, rah, rah, rah. So there are certain things that people do, and I'm not going to unearth that because I don't want to unearth the boys. But anyway, the chargers are the hardest. But this girl was bringing in the lot. And so the only thing that this girl didn't bring in when she was asked was a firearm and some bullets. But she brought in some knives that I'd never seen before. They were plastic knives, looked like plastic knives, but they weren't. You could not break these things. And obviously, we're not going to go off through any metal detector. And I can't remember what the plastic was, but it's really, really strong. And a lot of people use these weapons to try and get through metal detectors and whatnot. And this is why it was dangerous, because this person was legitimately had phones getting brought in, and anyone that was sweet with these boys was getting what they wanted. But it wasn't many. And like I said, people were literally getting taken off the yard. So, for instance, it's generally only 1 or 2 or 3 people that are doing all the big things, bringing in all the drugs and doing everything like that. If there was someone else that was bringing in drugs and doing all that kind of stuff, 100% putridness, these boys would get them off the yard. And it wasn't until later that we all found out that this was what was going on. Now, generally, when someone's got a screw suite, that it's usually pretty quiet. Now, yes, this person was given 5 different people in the units, reach arounds, bringing in phones, doing all that stuff, but no one knew outside of that group of people. And so the day that it was found out that is what was going on, and that the boys had been getting taken off the yard, getting called snitches, fake paperwork, all this, that screw, those boys, 100%, every one of them got taken off the yard. Every single one of their contraband items got taken, and that one officer screw got the biggest Glock dookie. So if you guys don't know what that is, so it is a milk container. So if you know the 600 ml Big M containers, so one of those full of and piss. And so the best place to get them, screws have to go around and check the buzzers every single morning. Sometimes they do it twice a day, just to, if, in case there's an emergency and a crook wants to press the help button, there's going to be someone there on the other side to help them. But anyway, this screw went in to check the cell. So what you do is you slam the door and you push it in under the door, and then obviously miss, they've called out miss, and then bang, bang, two at once, two whole milk containers full of turd and pee all over this screw, and then told to leave, otherwise she would end up the same way that her 5 friends ended up that day. And so this is just a small take on the corruption. This is just a small take. And like I said, this is just the start. I'm going to work my way up. And let me tell you, now that I am able to tell these stories, and, you know, like as always, I never drop names and I never do that. But these screws are absolutely putrid animals. And what is even worse is some of these screws are actually police officers now. And that just blows my mind that these people were able to slip through and now they're police officers, and the corruption is just absolutely wild. But this is why it is dangerous for corruption, because it's absolutely fucking awesome for the people who have got the corruption and all the contraband coming in, everything like that. But if you're on the other end of it, and look at that guy, that the screw actually got people to bash him, stab him, take him off the yard, send him to protection. And so, you know, and then you've got Mrs. friggin' front bank storage locker was literally making up stories like boys were snitching when they absolutely weren't, and a lot of people got taken out because of this screw. And although we got our own back in the end, it still happens, and it's absolutely putrid. And you better believe that this is only the start. The way these corruption stories are going to go is going to absolutely blow your mind. So much so that when I was on my corrections order, now I told you my corrections officer was an ex-Port Phillip screw, and they were telling me this whole time, don't be doing this stuff, rah, rah, rah. Well, guess what? Bang, here we are. And this is only the beginning. So if you guys have not subscribed to the Chaos Chronicles, jump down there, shoot me a subscription, because I promise you, shit is about to get really real here on the Chaos Chronicles. And yeah, thank you for tuning in, guys. I have been the Chaos Chronicles. You guys have been absolutely awesome. And as always, don't do drugs and crime and you won't end up in prison. We